Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Real Estate Investors Club podcast. I'm here with Axel today, and we're going to just do, I think, a little catch-up episode of what everybody's up to.
All right, that sounds good. Great idea. Thanks, Terrie, for having me.
All right, Axel. So tell me, what are you up to these days?
It's been busy. When is it not busy? We have several projects on the go, and in some ways it's extremely exciting because it's in the planning stage, and in some ways it's very frustrating because it's not moving fast enough for me. We have two of them. Well, one, I don't know how much detail you want me to go into, by the way, so I'll just kind of share and put it out there. We have one project that we acquired in December. That's it's a 4 unit. We need to renovate in Laval, right next to Metro Quartier, and we did the plans, and it got rejected by the city, and it got rejected on a pure technicality. It's a 6 weeks delay before they even look at it. So when you get rejected, you've lost a month and a half. And what happened is that it's below 300 square meters. It's 4 unit and below. So it's okay. We're just doing like small changes on the ground floor only in one of the layout of the units. And so I took a dessinateur, not an architect. And that's always worked. And when the person called me, she said like, yes, but in this case, it's a semi-detached. So in the 300 square meter, we also take into account the floor plan, the area of your neighbor. Therefore, you're at more than 300 meters. Therefore, we reject your file. And I thought I was about to snap, but I stayed cool and said, that's really too bad. Is there anything I can do? And she said, yeah, go get an architect and resubmit. So that's exactly what I did. That was 3 weeks ago. I've gotten my plans yesterday. So today I'm going to reapply. It's just that it's going to take another 6 weeks before they even get to the file. And I was hoping to start this beginning of March. So anyways, that's one project. It's okay though. It is what it is, except I have a private lender on this. So every month it adds up. And my goal was to be out by July. Anyways, so that, and then the other one, it's a duplex in Verdun. We can turn it into a 5 unit because there's no limit to the number of units, and we have enough frontage. It's just that the architect we started that file a while ago, like in October, November, and then it took a little bit more time on her side. And then she came back to us and said, oh, I should have it ready for April to go to CCU in May. And we're like, what? Anyways, so you push, but at the end of the day, your bottleneck is often other professionals, and it's something to be accepted. Like real estate is a long-term game. And yes, we'd like to be 3 months ahead, but we'll probably hold this property for 10 years. So at the end of the day, who cares?
So yeah, no, I mean, I hear the frustration sometimes, you're working on stuff and I jokingly say that, my job is the job of the mosquito, right? Like I'm the one who's going in everybody's ear, to try and just get things to go faster. And sometimes, no matter how much the mosquito purrs, it just won't make things go faster.
That's so true. And our job is really to I don't want to say it's just to do follow-ups, but it's to keep pushing the ball forward. And sometimes it's a snowball. You just need to give it a little push or change the direction. But you always every day you have to push forward. And sometimes it's exciting and sometimes it's a bit more difficult. And I'm very impatient, and I admit it. So it never goes fast enough.
But so if we get into those deals that you're doing, how did you find them? Were they on Centris? Were they off markets? How did you find the deals?
So it's actually those two are a perfect sample because one of them was on Centris. And people say there's no deals. And the story behind this one in a minute and a half is that I had actually a bird dog bring me a property, a duplex in that neighborhood in Laval, next to Quartier Metro. And it's 8 p.m. We're discussing it. And I'm like, oh, let me see what's on the market in that area. And I see this 4 unit listed at $299. And I'm like, okay, I don't know the Laval market that well, but this seems odd. And I do look at Centris, but not that much these days. And I literally just said to myself, this is either an oddball, something must be wrong with it. In the past, I would have been like, too bad, like whatever, move on. And this one, I texted the agent at 8 p.m. and be like, hey, I have questions about that address. Let me know. And she texted me back. She called me at 8 a.m. the next day. And she said, look, we're taking offers. Today's the cutoff. It's noon. And I said, okay, well, look, I'll just, I'll make an offer. If it gets accepted, I'll come and visit. And then my wife had 1 week of vacation, and it's during that week. And it's like, and we're around breakfast, and I'm like, or maybe it'd be fun. Like, you have a bit of time. Let's go visit. So I called her back. We made an appointment for 11:30, last visit in the schedule. And we liked it. And our eyes were just like, okay, opportunity, fully vacant, 4 units, 300 meters away from a metro. And they're asking pretty much city evaluation on Centris. And then it's like, okay. And there was another couple who was there, a contractor from Laval, who was like, he's pété les bretelles there. He knew everything. And we just stayed super discreet. We almost played stupid. And it was time to make the offers. And I was like, no, you had your appointment before. You go make your offer. We'll go after. And that's what we did. And we offered 410, and we got it. And that buyer's remorse, or you're like, oh my God, I so overpaid. I'm crazy. Oh my God. And like, no, that's $100K a door. It's a bargain. The location is great. And so we bought it from Revenue Quebec. It was a succession. An old lady passed away. It took 2 years to be processed through the system. And then eventually Revenue Quebec gave it to an agent and said, sell this thing. And it was on the market for about a week. And we got it. So to everyone listening, there are opportunities on Centris. You just need to call. You need to go visit. You need to ask questions. And then the other one, to finish the other one was an off market. Our son had forgotten his jacket at music class. And my wife said, I'm just going to walk back. It's like a 20-minute walk. So she went with the stroller. And then we every time we see a notice on a door, we always go in. When it's an official notice, we always go and read it. And this one had been to vacate the premises for insalubrité. And we're like, ooh, opportunity. So we did the research. It took us about 2 months. We got it under contract, and we closed at 70 cents on the dollar.
Good for you. Read the fine print.
Read the lesson. Yeah, read the fine print. But like, to every investor out there who's starting or wants to start and stuff, like, both you and I have heard so many times, the market's so crazy, everything is so expensive, there's no deals. There are deals. You just need to keep looking. You need to talk to people. Even go on Centris and go look at, sometimes like, take your list on Centris and sort by the oldest listing. And then you go with the oldest listing, and then you offer them 80% or 75% of what they're asking. And if they're desperate enough, they'll take it. There's a reason it's been listed for 9 months.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyways, those 2 projects, and there's one large other one that I don't want to talk about too much right now because it's still ongoing and it's exciting, and I'll keep it for later. And then we just finished another one that we just refinanced last month. So it's operational, stabilized, very happy with it. So that's where we're at. And the one thing is that I'm restarting to prospect, because prospecting is the one thing you should never stop doing. Even if you're fully loaded on projects and you don't have any bandwidth and you never stop prospecting. Because if you find opportunities, you can flip it to somebody else and make a little cut, or you can just find it and not move ahead, but at least there are deals. And so it's never stop prospecting.
Good advice.
Well, what about you, Terrie? What are you working on these days?
Well, it was funny, like, as I was listening to you go through your what you're doing, it's actually really funny because I think we're like, I'm going to tell the same story. So I'm actually working on 2 things at the moment. One that came from Centris and another one that didn't come from Centris.
There you go.
Yeah. So to start with the Centris deal, it was actually 18 units in Trois-Rivières, which, came up on Centris, and that's a market that I watch. And so, we put in an offer, not crazy over asking, I think it's the GRM there. We're looking at something like, I think 14.5 on the deal. Went and visited, very classic process. I think there were maybe 3 or 4 other offers, but it's actually a 12-plex and a 6-plex, and it's the same owner who's liquidating both of them. And so they had a preference to deal with the same person on both of those transactions. So, that being a smaller market that's somewhat less competitive, it was easier for me to get in there and to also just, come in with how can I say, like a scale of making an offer on both of them.
Yeah.
The challenge then is the economic value, right? Because, I think I don't, Trois-Rivières also, like the economic values are really quite low. So it took a sizable amount of cash. And so like managing to figure that out was kind of the stress with that particular transaction. So that's like basically now we're waiting for financing, and, we've been able to do it CMHC. So like, we're hoping that the delay is not going to be too long and that they're not going to get too nervous on the other side.
Yeah. And the way you described the deal, you said it's a 6 and a 12. Are they side by side?
No, they're like about 5 minutes one from the other, but because the seller, it's the same seller. I guess it's an older man who's liquidating. Like basically we were able to do one set of offers and like one set of financing, and so like the file, it's just like progressing as one file.
Because that gives a lot of opportunity in terms of like keeping both, or like reselling the 6 and then investing a lot in the 12. Like it's great because it creates so much more opportunities for exit strategies.
Yeah, well, and also the other great thing is that the 12 unit is actually 2 6s. So it's cadastered separately. And for some reason, this person, that's it. Like for some reason, this person just wanted to liquidate this as a one-shot deal. But like, had they taken the time to just sell each of those 6 units separately, like it would have been much more advantageous for them. And like, I'll do a little bit of a sidebar. Like basically, like the way that they wanted to do the deal forces it to be like a conventional, if you're going to finance with the institutions, it forces it to be like a conventional, big mortgage. But like the way to do this in the most advantageous way is to have 3 deals with Desjardins, in which case the buyer finances 75% and they're able to offer more. So like the real way to sell those is to do 3 separate transactions. Sure, it's going to take you a little bit more time, but like ultimately you could, if I were to like resell them tomorrow, probably make like 100K just on that.
Yeah. Just on the splitting them up,
on the
and
splitting
reselling
and doing
individually.
3 separate transactions, and like, sure, some of that money will go to my agent, but like, he does a good job. I'm happy to cut him a check. So,
and your plan with this deal, is it a long-term hold, or you're saying like 3 to 5 years and maybe you'll sell it back?
Well, I have a 5-year plan. And like, that's generally what I'm doing right now is I'm making like, unless there's a reason for the plan to be more short-term, like I'm making, 5-year plans. And so this is on a 5-year plan. We're going to have a 5-year CMHC mortgage. And then like, we'll see if there's an opportunity to get out earlier for whatever reason, why not? But also it's a joint venture deal. And the person that I'm venturing with, like he's also kind of on a more long time horizon. So we're not looking to make any quick movements. And I mean, Trois-Rivières is also not a market in which one makes quick movements now. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like in Montreal is much more of like a, optimize, get in, get out kind of a thing. But even though Trois-Rivières, the rents are progressing well, it's just a more stable market where there's less movement, lower rents, slower progression. And at a 14, 15 times multiple, you can afford to just let it keep doing its thing, right? So,
and just to be clear for everyone listening, when you say 14, 15 times multiple, is that your gross revenue is 14 times the price?
The price is 14 times gross revenue.
Yes, sorry, I flipped it the wrong way. Okay, just to be clear, so everyone understands. Okay, perfect. And yeah, I just love the fact that, as you said, it's actually like 3 separate lots, 3 separate properties, and if you wanted, you could keep them for 5 years, and then 5 years from now, resell in year 5, 6, and 7. Exactly.
So that's like one deal, and the other deal is kind of an off market. It's actually a pocket listing, an 8-plex in Montreal North, which we're going to notary actually in just about a week now. And so that was, I guess the correct term is bird dog. So there are these, these people, for people who are not familiar with what a bird dog is, it's somebody who's kind of out like surveying the market and has a bunch of contacts, and then will bring you an off market, either a pocket listing that an agent has, and then they take a percentage. And so basically it was a transaction with a bird dog who brought this deal to me. And it just happens that fits. It was like with a different investor and it just happened to fit into that plan. Also, it was like, the building was a little bit undervalued. And that's kind of a segment of Montreal that like, I know that I have the management capacity to deal with it. And then like, the transaction itself was also, it's been a bit of a ride.
What happened? Yeah.
No, like, man, like it was supposed to be like a pretty quick turnaround. We signed the offer papers, I think beginning of November. Oof. And it was Desjardins financing. So we had financing acceptance within like 3 weeks of the accepted offer. But then like, it was everything else just kept like being pushed out and pushed out. We had a positive phase 1, then we had to go to phase 2. And like the seller is also just like someone who's like very complicated. Like he didn't, no. And like, then you understand why it's an off market, right? Like the guy's like so suspicious. We did a building inspection for sale and he was telling his tenants that we were like looking at the cracks in the ceilings. So like we're doing the inspection and I'm like, me and the inspector are there like looking like we're trying to look for cracks in the ceilings. But like when you come back like twice in 1 week, inspecting every single unit, looking for cracks in the ceilings, like it's super suspicious. And then you're like, seller, like, why don't you just tell the people that you're selling the building? Like, it's okay. It's not classified information, but he's like,
they're going to know.
I understand, but the tenants, it's like, okay. It's like, but so what? Right. Like it's not like, anyway, it's not super classified information.
But wait, he was telling them that you were here to look at the cracks in the building because he wanted to hide the fact that he was in the process of selling to his tenants. Yeah. That serves no purpose other than protecting his own. No, it serves no purpose. And no, it's putting you in a bad spot.
No. But it's like, it was ridiculous from ridiculous. So like, I'll just tell you like another 2 anecdotes because of how funny they are. But like, so another thing, so we're like, during the inspection, like I discover cockroaches because I happen to know what cockroaches look like. Right. So we're like poking around under the sinks. And then like, I'm like, oh, that's a baby cockroach. And then the guy's like, everyone's trying to tell me, no, Terrie, it's not a baby cockroach. I'm like, I know what a baby cockroach is. Like, here's Google. I like show them a picture. It's a baby cockroach. Okay. So now seller who's there, I'm like, okay, buddy, like go and get an exterminator because like, I just want to report, like as part of the due diligence, like I don't care. It's not a big deal. It's not a foundation problem, but I just want to know, like, what am I getting into? Mm-hmm. So then the guy like goes and apparently pays the exterminator cash, no reports, no invoice, no nothing. And I'm like, okay, but like that was it was in a modification. Like we put it into the offer. So like, why would you do that? Like you're in the due diligence process.
I need a document.
I need a document. Like show me a document. It's not like whatever, it's a whatever over $1 million deal. And you don't want to go and spend like $500 to have an a report anyway. So it's just like one thing after another. And then you realize that like sometimes when you get buildings like at a discounted rate, it's because there's someone in there who's so complicated. Like sometimes the building is the complicated factor, but I'd say 50% of the time it's the seller or like somebody in that equation is complicated and it's complicated in their mind. And as a result, if you're like willing to go through, the trials and tribulations of actually making that offer happen, and then and the environmental report was its own thing, right? Because we had like a phase 1 that said maybe there was a buried oil tank on the premises, right? So now we have to go to phase 2. But then, in my understanding, like the buyer pays for the phase 1, but if phase 1 comes back positive, like I'm expecting the seller to pick up at least part of the phase 2, because let's suppose that it's finds something positive, I'm allowed to walk away from the transaction. So I'm not going to buy you a phase 2 so that I can then walk away because I don't like what it says. Right. And so like, then there was the whole process of negotiating that. And then the guy, like, first he didn't want to pay. Then finally he agreed to pay the phase 2 upfront and we reimburse him at the time of sale if it's negative. But then he ordered the firm to like not share any information with us. So like, it's my firm, it's my contact. And I call like, the technician, okay, can I get some information? And the guy's like, no, I am not allowed to talk to you about this at all. I'm like, okay, what's the point of that? Like, you're going to have to show me the report anyways. Like it's written in the offer papers. So anyway, it's it's been a bit of a trial and tribulation, but like I said, we're going to the notary in about a week and
Well, I'm happy that finally you are actually going to get to close this thing. And just to hear you talk about it, I find it reminds me of like, and I don't remember who said that, but it's like the best way to lose 100,000 is to actually try to save 1,000.
Oh my God.
And cutting corners and like what you just described, but like the exterminator. And it's like, it's in the offer. Go spend $500. Go get the receipt. Let's fulfill it. I got my report. It's done. It's clean. That's it. Don't try to save the taxes on $500. Come on.
No, I mean, like if he even did it in the first place, but like, let me just tell you I'm going to tell you one more funny anecdote from this, just because it's like, it's so hilarious. Like it needs to come out. So like when we did the inspection, like there was a tap on the outside of the building running. So like it's -10 and like the garden hose, basically the garden hose outlet has burst because nobody turned it off inside. And it's like leaking water on the side of the building. Okay. Yeah. So I'm like, we're at the inspection and like this is happening. So I'm like to the seller, I'm like, okay, like basically you need to fix this, like fix it and send me a plumber's bill. It's going to cost you $200, but I just want to know that we're not flooding the foundation and like, there's not something else going on. So then what happens? I get like, through the agents, like I get a call back. Oh, well, my client just turned off the tap and it's not running anymore. I'm like,
that's not what I asked for.
No, that's not physically possible. Cause basically what somebody did is they just switched off the cutoff valve in the basement so that the water is no longer running outside, but like that's a burst pipe. Like, it's not because you switch off the cutoff valve in the building that you fix the problem. Like I want to see a bill from a plumber. But of course, no bill ever appeared. So like now I have a burst pipe that I have to fix. It's a $200 problem. But like at the same time, you're doing $1 million transaction. Like what?
But do you feel with everything that you've described and the complicatedness of the seller, do you feel like you're at least buying at a little bit of a discount?
Oh no, it's like it's at a big discount. Like even back in November, it was at a discount, and so today the market has evolved. And like I also know, when you see a seller who's behaving like this, like the building is so poorly managed that like just by managing it properly, which like I know me and my team, we have the skills to do that. Like one is I'm going to make some money in the buy. And then once I take over the management of this, just by tightening the screws, and not even talking about doing like, it's not a plan to do a big optimized job. This is also like a, 3 to 5 year hold property, but like just by managing the thing properly, we're going to be able to do a lot of turning around. So.
Good. Well, I'm glad it's working out. You have like 2 great deals underway. I'm happy for you. That's great.
Yeah, and it's always makes some good stories.
Yeah, it always does. But like, I find what's the moral of this? And like, as you said, like it's all the small things that add up. And when you do $1 million transaction like that, you can just see from the seller just by his attitude, like trying to cut those corners. Imagine like, I don't know how long he's had the property, but imagine all the corners he's cut over time in that place, and the deferred maintenance and how much opportunity it creates for you who's got a good, well-oiled machine.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like, I mean, if I think if there was like a moral to this particular story, like that's what it is. Like sometimes you get these like, complicated transactions that like, it's possible to be afraid and be like, what's this guy hiding? Blah, 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 blah. But like, by the time I go in there and like, I trust my inspector, I also trust my gut in terms of like, getting a feel for the tenants and getting a feel for the property. And so like, it's just a question of like dealing with the human complication of getting there. And like, often if you're willing to deal with some human complication, you can actually get a good deal because like nobody else is willing to go through all of the machinations that it takes to bring that to closing. So,
yeah. Yay. Okay. So that's next week. I'll think of you. And that's, you must be so happy to wrap that up. Good job.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Axel, thank you for doing this little update. Hopefully some of our trials and tribulations are going to be constructive for our audience. And I'm going to wish everybody a good rest of the week.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Terrie. Talk to you next week.
Bye-bye.